And now, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we shall hear from the President of the Republic of Liberia, His Excellency Joseph Numa Boakai, Sr.
Your Excellency, President John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, distinguished representatives of the African Union, CARICOM, CELAC, and the global African diaspora, the United Nations agencies and institutions, civil society, development partners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to address this conference and to serve on the global advisory panel of the reparatory justice. I thank my brother and friend, John Mahama, and the government and the people of Ghana convening this important gathering. It is fitting that we meet on these historic shores, still marked by the memory of those who were torn from their homes, families, and communities and fought across the Atlantic. This sovereign still calls us to confront one of the history's gravest crimes against humanity. We get it to ensure that this resolution becomes not only a statement of historic recognition, but also a framework for truth, justice, healing, and institutional repairs. More than 500 years after the first victims were taken across the Atlantic, and 200 years after the trade was formally abolished, the adoption on March 26, 2026 of the United Nations resolution recognizing the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans among the gravest crimes against humanity marks a significant and necessary moral moment. We honor the millions who suffered and died, those who resisted and survived, and the descendants who continue to live with its effect. This resolution carries profound significance. It acknowledges the wrongs of the past and recognizes how the continuing vestiges of the Atlantic slave trade shape our present realities and influence the future of our one world. For Liberia, the legacy of transatlantic slave trade is woven into the fabric of our national story and continues to shape our understanding of identity, belonging, and nationhood. Our experience demonstrates that the consequences of slavery cannot be measured solely in terms of lost labor, stolen wealth, or economic deprivation. They also include intergenerational social, cultural, psychological, and political impact that can persist for centuries. If we are to pursue meaningful reparatory justice, our efforts must extend beyond financial considerations. They must also embrace historical truth-telling, reconciliation, identity restoration, cultural healing, education, institution building, and the strengthening of our social cohesion. As we consider the next steps following this historic resolution, Liberia offers its experience as evidence of justice, healing, and reconciliation are inseparable from the sustainable development and lasting peace. With this resolution not adopted, the question before us is simple. What must we do next? Allow me, therefore, to propose 5 priorities for implementation. First, we must develop a common African position and implementation framework in collaboration with the CLARICON and diaspora organizations, supported by a coordinated roadmap with clear priorities, responsibilities, and timeliness. Second, working with the United Nations, we should establish an African Union, United Nations Expert Commission to design a global reparatory justice mechanism. Third, we must confront misinformation and erase through truth, education, and research by strengthening the teaching of African history, preserving archives, and supporting universities and research institutions across Africa and the diaspora. Fourth, repairing historical wrongs requires the restitution of stolen cultural artifacts and heritage objects, together with development partnerships that address persistent inequalities rooted in slavery and its aftermath. The scale and depth of trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement cannot be measured fully in financial terms alone. Yet, the transatlantic slave trade, forced labor, and resource extraction generated enormous wealth that shaped the economic foundations of many societies across the world. There is no doubt that the slave trade and its aftermath contributed profoundly to the inequality and the underdevelopment in Africa and across the global South. The past has helped shape the inequalities of the present. Fifth, we call for development partnerships and the global initiatives that address persistent inequalities and underdevelopment rooted in slavery and its aftermath, grounded in shared responsibility and mutual respect. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to all those across the world who seek to understand and engage honestly with this history, and to the nations and societies whose shared task is now to help chart the path forward, the call for reparatory justice is not an effort to assign personal guilt to the present generation for the sins of the past. Rather, it is a call for understanding, empathy, and willingness to confront uncomfortable truth. We invite our partners across the world to share in our anguish, to recognize the enduring consequences of the historic injustice, and to join in a common commitment to healing and repair. Together, let us forge a solemn pact that the dehumanization, exploitation, and racialized enslavement of any people shall never, ever again find refuge in our institution, our economies, or our collective conscience. Let this be a common promise to humanity and to generations unborn. History has brought us to a rare defining moment. Future generations will judge us not by the eloquence of our declaration, but by the courage of our actions. This resolution has opened a door. Whether the door leads to meaningful justice, reconciliation, and healing, now depends on our collective resolve. Let us not be remembered as another conference or another resolution that stirred consciences briefly before fading into history. Let it be remembered as a moment when the world chose truth over silence, justice over hesitation, and moral courage over the comfort of the status quo. Today, through us, those voices speak again. They call not for vengeance, but for recognition, not for division, but for reconciliation, not for charity, but for justice. Let us therefore leave Accra united in purpose and committed to ensuring that the gravest crime against humanity is met with one of the humanity's greatest responses, a determined global effort to restore dignity, repair historical wrongs, and build a future founded on equality, shared prosperity, and our common humanity. If we succeed, generations yet unborn will remember that this moment we chose not simply to remember history, but to help shape it. May God bless us, and I wish my friend and brother John congratulations for his success and the winning of a very, very important match last night. May God bless us all.